everyone. Here we go. The very last lesson here in chapter 11, and then we are off to summer vacation. All right. So chapter 11.8 is comparing and ordering our fractions, okay? So the first 7 lessons up until now, we've just kind of been comparing our fractions with the same numerator, the same denominator. Different numerators and denominators was last lesson. So now not only are we going to compare them, but we're going to put them in order from least to greatest or greatest to least, okay? So on 525, it says plot the fractions on the number line and then order them. So we've got 3/6, 1/6, and 5/6. Since they all have the same denominator, we can put them all on one number line. Got my 0 and my 1, and here we go. 1/6, 2/6, 3/6, 4/6, and 5/6. Since I'm putting them on a number line, I want to make sure that I have all of the fractions from 0 to 1. If you want, you can just put the tick marks and erase the 2/6 and the 4/6. But it's really up to you as long as you have 6 equal shares, okay? Now I'm going to plot. I'm going to plot 1/6. I'm going to plot 3/6 and 5/6. So then it says put them in order from, let me grab a different color, from least to greatest. So least being my smallest fraction, and then greatest being my largest, or the one closest to 1 whole. So my smallest fraction is the one closest to 0. That's 1/6. My greatest fraction is my fraction closest to 1 whole, which in this case is 5/6. And then the middle fraction is 3/6. Okay, and when we are comparing numbers or ordering them greatest to least or least to greatest, they are separated by commas. Okay? So for reasoning, how can you use the fraction 1/2 to compare and order fraction? Well, you can always use 1/2 to kind of determine which fractions are greater or less than the other fractions. So like half here would be 3/6. But there are many different ways. All right, let's turn the page. We are on 526. Order the fractions 7/8, 1/8, and 5/8 from least to greatest. Plot the fractions on the number line. All 3 fractions have the same denominator. All right, so it already gives you the number line. That's always helpful. So you just need to put a plot point at the 1/8, the 5/8, and the 7/8, okay? So then, just like I had said with this example, blank 8th is farthest to the left. Well, looking at it, our 1/8 is farthest to the left. Well, which fraction is farthest to the right or closest to the 1 whole? 7/8, which leaves 5/8 between the 2 fractions. So the order from least to greatest is 1/8, 5/8, and 7/8. So you've got, I think that's Newton, the little dog there, saying that 7/8 is closest to the 1 and 1/8 is closest to 0, okay? Same example that I just gave you here. When I compare fractions, I compare them to the 0 and the 1. So the second example is order the fractions 2/4, 2/3, and 2/6 from least to greatest. Use your fraction strips. All 3 fractions have the same numerator. All right, so that makes it a little different when we're comparing with the same numerator. All right, so we need 2/4, 2/3, and 2/6, and we are comparing those. All right, let me draw my fraction strips. So at the tippy top, I've got 1 whole, okay? And then it asks for my 4th, so I'm going to do my 4th first. And if you just notice, my first fraction line that I draw is right at the half. It helps keep me and my fractions on my fraction strips all lined up since I don't have my own fraction strips and I have to draw them each time. Okay, so I've got my fourths here. Next is my thirds. So we'll go about here and here. We have our thirds, and then the last space is for our sixths. Since I already have my halfway point, that's what I'm going to go ahead and do first. And then I'll split each one from there. Something sort of like this. So we have our sixths. All right, once we have our fraction strips drawn, well, they have it drawn for you, so all you have to do is shade. So I'm going to shade my 2/4, just like that. And then I will shade my 2/3. And then finally, I'm shading my 2/6. All right. So 2 over what is the shortest? Well, if I'm looking at these, my 2/6 is the shortest. All right. Which one is the longest? My 2/3 is the longest. Because if you look, it goes the farthest. So 2/3 is the longest, which leaves my 2/4 being in the middle. So my 2/4 is in between. Okay? So now I need to just put them into order. So I'll slide over here and we are going to have 2/6 and then 2/4 followed by 2/3. Okay, and see they're separated with a comma. I did my shortest one first and then the in-between and the longest. So that's how we're going to solve. For number 1, it says order the fractions 3/3, 3/4, and 3/8 from least to greatest. Alrighty. So I need 3/3, 3/3, 3/4, and 3/8. All right, from least to greatest. Now, maybe I don't want to draw fraction strips this time, and I just want to compare my fractions, okay? So this is kind of what I'm going to think. 3/3 is equal to 1/2, okay? That is, draw a little arrow, that's 1/2. All right? 3/4 is 1 away from 1/2. And then 3/8 is 5 away from 1/2. Okay. Now, with that being said, if I know 3/3 is already 1/2, that's already my largest fraction. You can't get bigger in this case than 1/2. So I've got that one covered. Now I need to decide which one is the smallest. So now I'm going to compare 3/4 to 3/8, okay? Well, before when we've compared, I know that the greater the denominator, the smaller of the equal shares, so the smaller of the fraction. So with that being said, I know that 3/4 is greater than 3/8, okay? Which means 3/8 is my smallest fraction, and then 3/4 is in between, okay? Again, if fractions with the differing denominators but same numerator is a little tricky for you, go back and watch 11.5. Yes. All right. And then if fractions with the same denominator but different numerators is confusing, go back and watch 11.4. All right. So let's do an example. We just did an example with the same numerators. Let's look at number 2 where they have the same denominators. All right. So looking at number 2 on page 527, we have 1/6 compared to 6/6 compared to 5/6. All right. Well, you can do a few things. You can put them on a number line. You can draw a picture. You can make fraction strips. Whatever you'd like to do. But if I'm just looking at them and I know when I have the same denominator, all I need to do is compare my numerator numbers, well, I know 1 is my smallest number. I know 6 is my largest number, which leaves 5/6 in the middle. See? All right, so you have those same questions all the way through number 7. Number 8 is 3 fractions have the same denominator. How would you know which fraction is the greatest? Well, we just did that. So put that into words. How would we know? We would compare the numerators to solve for which fractions are greater, and then we'd put them in order. For number 9, it's an open-ended. Write a fraction that is between 2/8 and 2/3. Whatever fraction you want, that would be somewhere between that, okay? It's very open-ended. Number 10 is find the pattern. So the fractions below are in order from least to greatest. Describe the pattern. Well, look at if all the numerators are the same, we're going to check out the denominators. So we've got 2/8, 2/7, 2/6, 2/5. Well, a pattern that I notice is that each denominator is actually decreasing by 1. So then it would be 2/4, 2/3, 2/2, and 2/1. So that's how they are from least to greatest. All right. Let's look at 528. So up at the top, it says a construction crew replaces 1/8 of a road on Monday, a 1/4 of a road on Tuesday, and a 1/6 of a road on Wednesday. Which day does the crew replace the longest piece of road, and on which day does the crew replace the shortest piece of road? All right. So for my model piece, I want to go ahead and draw my fraction strips, okay? So I've got 1 whole at the top, and then we are split into 4ths. So these are my 4ths. And then we are split into 8ths. Again, I'm following that half mark. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. So those are our 8ths. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 6. So we've got 1, 2, 3. All right, so those are our 6ths. Okay. Well, if I'm shading in 1/4 on Tuesday, that's Tuesday, 1/8 on Monday, 1/8 on Monday, and then we have 1/6 on Wednesday. Which was the shortest day? So the longest piece of road, well, I'm looking at my fraction strips. Tuesday is the longest. What's my shortest day? That would be Monday, because of 1/8 is smallest. So that's my shortest piece. Okay? And then if I'm going to explain it, I'm going to put 1/8 is less than 1/6, which is less than 1/4. Okay? So that's what you're doing. If you have any questions, you can always rewatch or shoot us an email. But we're finished with chapter 11. Yay! Good job, guys.